Perfect. All right, everybody, welcome. This is MEAM Buddies. This is Asmi, and we are chatting about course selection for the upcoming semester. You're about to hear from a bunch of juniors and seniors, and even a couple of sophomores and freshmen from within ASME. And today we're going to give you our lowdown on all of the classes that we've had the opportunity to take as mechanical engineering majors. You're going to hear the truth about all of them, which is great. And just so you know, this is recorded and we do send out the slides as well. So you will have all of this information to refer to in the future. So with that, let's get started. As you can see, we are on slide number 2. And this is a general tip that we give everybody that we speak to. And that is that if you ever are in doubt, you can always vet everything through Katie Knorr. She will be your saving grace. And it's really easy to schedule a meeting with her. You can see the link is there. You can also look it up on Google. So if you ever have any questions about anything requirement-wise, course counting-wise, academic worksheet planning-wise, you can always reach out to Katie, and please take advantage of that. Cool. And this is the new MEAM undergrad flowchart. This came out last year, actually. And this you can also find on the Mechanical and Engineering Department website. It's a pretty basic and convenient way to organize yourself when you move forward into the academic planning future. As you can see, it's broken up into a year-by-year basis, and you can find on the department's website each of these titles and the classes that fall under them. So this is just a very general flowchart. And this is the new updated modern curriculum. Again, this is actually what I probably referred to most when I was planning my schedule, because it actually gives you all of the core curriculum and tells you how you can build around it. So this is a great option. If you're live here, I would recommend screenshotting this and taking a look at this every time you plan out your schedule. It has all the different math classes, the MEAM department classes, and even includes like the concentration classes that you could theoretically take. In this case, the concentration is energy, fluids, and thermal systems. So those blue highlights are conducive to that. But yeah, this is a great option. And another little hack is to credit multi-count. I can't say this enough. I have the entrepreneurship minor, and I'm able to count a ton of the actual entrepreneurship classes as double counted for MEAM requirements. So you can see at the bottom, EAS 545 is an option for that. I take another class called How to Make Things, MEAM 411, which satisfies both of those requirements. So this is kind of something that is difficult to find because the school doesn't necessarily make it easy for you to find credit multi-counting. So I'd recommend looking at this slide. I would also recommend speaking to actual upperclassmen that have had the opportunity to do this, because it's something that the school doesn't always recommend, but it's definitely something that you should take advantage of so you can maximize the amount of classes that you can take, and also the maximum number of major, minor, degree, whatever that you would want to receive out of it. Okay, and that's enough of the logistics. We're going to move into actual courses now, and we're starting with natural science electives. And I believe that goes to Miranda.
Hi, everyone. Okay, so with Geology 130, or now 1300, you take this course. It's a relatively simple introduction to oceanography. This semester, I had a visiting professor from Temple, so that will change, and that's probably going to change the direction of the course and how it's taught. But generally, it's a course where you learn a lot about the ecosystem of the ocean. You learn different terms for different rock formations in it, different terms for different biological life within the ocean. It's a relatively straightforward class. There's a lot of memorization and note-taking, which personally I don't enjoy doing. So that's something I wish I had known signing up for it. But it's pretty chill. All of the exams this semester have been online without like any proctoring at all, which is nice. It's a really decent class, and it's a good one for your natural science.
Miranda, I think you have the next two as well.
I do. Oh, okay. I did not take biology 140. But hold on. But this course seems to be pretty chill. It's a lot of exams, another class where you have to be cautious about the notes that you're taking. It seems pretty cool. Definitely check it out and see if you know other upperclassmen who've taken this class. Geology 205 is another class. Geology department in general is a good department to do your natural science, and if you want something easygoing. That being said, I'm pretty sure they're splitting the geology department into climatology and paleontology. So do be aware of that as you're registering for courses this fall. But this class is kind of similar as 130, but it's a little more difficult. However, it's another course where you're taking a lot of notes, writing things down, and understanding concepts. So if you're interested in this, take this class.
Cool. And now we're going to move on to math courses and electives. And I believe the first slide is with Jason.
Hey, what's up, guys? So I'll talk a little bit about the required math classes here. I wasn't a freshman. I was a freshman back in 2018, so I believe it's all the same more or less though. So math 140 is, sorry, I'll just make sure you can hear me. Math 140 is the intro calc class. So that's like multivariable. Most people come in without having learned 140 content yet. So that'll be one of the classes that you take. What was previously 114 is now 1410, and that's going to be multivariable. If you come in without credit for AP Calc BC, then you'd have to actually start one level before that, which is math 1400. And then after that, you get into straight linear algebra, so that's math 2400, which when I took it, it was called 240. And then after that, ENM 251. Or math 241. For this one, I want to mention that if it's at all possible, you should try and take ENM 251, or I guess 2510, because that's like actually intended for engineering students, whereas math 241, you're going to get a lot of people from college. So like, other than just the fact that the problems are going to be more like oriented to, you know, engineering application, the professors are also just like generally better and more flexible. I think ENM 2510 is taught by Michael Carchidi, who's really a highly respected professor here. That's only offered in the spring though, so you should, if at all possible, maybe even like wait it out in the fall and then wait to take ENM 2510 in the spring. On the next slide, actually, we talk about, sorry, if someone could turn the slide, please. On the next slide, we talk about MEAM 312, or at least when I took it as 312, now it's 3120, which is linear algebra again. This is very similar to math 240 actually. So this is very popular for students to take because it kind of gives you that additional depth, but without really all that much new content. So it's pretty easy by most standards. So if you want an easy class, but also maybe gets you one step closer to the math minor, then I would advise you take math 3120. On the subject of the math minor, this might be another slide, but a lot of MEAM students get a minor in math. You only need like one extra credit to get it. So, you know, given that you're already taking a lot of required math classes within the MEAM majors, so this is often that class, and this is also a good math class that you can take potentially in your fall of your sophomore year, while you're kind of buying more time to then, you know, wait it out and take ENM 251 in the spring of your sophomore year, like I was mentioning earlier. And then also 313 and 314 are kind of variants of this class. 313 is more application, so that's more like a MATLAB. And then 314 is just like an honors version, so to speak. But overall, I would definitely highly recommend taking either of these classes.
Yeah, so I can chat about this one. Stat 4300 is a probability class. It's kind of your intro to statistics as an engineering student. It is technically in Wharton, but when I took the class, it was mostly full of engineers and math majors. I would say personally, I thought the content was very much not like what you would expect your like classic probability class to be like in high school. There's a lot of like calculus in it. And it's definitely a challenging course. That being said, you do need to take a math class being a MEAM student. And so as far as like math classes go, this is like one of the easier ones, but still definitely like challenging, and don't expect it to be a breeze. I took this with Karchidi, who is like very prominent in the MEAM department and everyone loves. He is like decent for this class. I think that I've heard really good things about Lo as well. But definitely look up the professor ratings, because I think like the first professor here, like Ding, is really rated poorly for this class. And I think that that really makes a difference and what you'll be able to get out of it. But definitely would recommend as like a not horrible class for like a math, to go for that math minor, or just like as your math class is required.
Cool. And now we're moving on to professional electives, and we're starting again with Miranda.
Yeah, so this class used to be ESC, like, I want to say like, I don't want to say 400. I remember it when it had only 3 digits, is what I'm saying. A friend of mine took it. It's with Professor Thomas Castle, and it's really, really hard. It's an economics course, but it's engineering economics. There are a lot of homeworks. There's a lot of stuff. My friend took it when he was a freshman, so do keep that in mind. It's really hard, but it's really helpful. You'll learn a lot about economics. You'll learn a lot about engineering. Yeah. So that's kind of this course.
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit more about engineering 1050. So the course is an introductory course to MATLAB. I would say it's, I know this course is required, but you can also substitute it in for Sys 110 or Sys 120. But I would highly recommend that this is like the intro to programming course that you do take, because later on throughout your engineering career, you will utilize a lot of MATLAB throughout either your lab courses or even through your primary engineering courses. So the class is taught by Graham Wabrzewski, as well as an additional professor that rotates, I think, every semester. Graham is a great professor and overall great person to learn from. He's definitely passionate about what he does, and he'll definitely make you passionate about learning about how to program, especially if it's like your introductory course. And so for MEAM 1010, or what used to be called MEAM 101, it's the Intro to CAD course. This class is typically taken by most incoming freshmen, and it's where you're really learning the basics of using SolidWorks for computer-aided design. And this course also teaches you multiple different rapid prototyping methods, which involves you laser cutting as well as 3D printing through the rapid prototyping lab that we have here at Penn. If CAD is something that you're really not familiar with, this is definitely the class to take, because Professor Dustin Roberts is someone who's had plenty of experience both through the professional as well as the educational realm of engineering, and definitely has a lot to offer through this course.
Well, and now we're back to Miranda.
Yep. Okay, so MEAM, oh gosh, it's 2010 now. I'm so used to saying 201. MEAM 201, MEAM 2010 is Intro to Design and Manufacturing. I'm actually a TA for this course, so I can kind of give you a perspective from both the student side and the teaching team side. It's an awesome class. I really enjoyed it. It's a lot of work, which you can kind of see in the recommendation. And it definitely bunches up towards the end of the semester, so do keep that in mind. That being said, though, these skills are so incredibly useful, especially in industry if you're planning on working for a company. Companies are really impressed by some of the skills you'll learn in 201, like GD&T, knowing how to mill, knowing how to use a lathe, understanding both the programming and the manual side. Those are all really good things to know. How hard is it to get into the class in the fall? In general, it's kind of hard to get into the class, but not impossible. It's a little worse if you're a freshman because you don't get as much priority and there usually is a waiting list. That being said, totally worth it. Keep trying to get into this class. It's definitely possible. There are 32 spots. And typically upperclassmen like juniors and seniors don't take this course. That being said, this year's going to be a little weird just because of COVID. People are catching up with these skills. But yeah, it's a really great course. You'll learn a lot, and these skills are super helpful if you actually want to work in industry as an engineer.
And now on to MEAM 4150 product design. This is a very, very cool class. The professor is Carl Ulrich, who is very knowledgeable, also has a ton of experience in investments and startups. Although now he has actually very recently taken a sabbatical, so he's not full-time teaching the class. He does come in for the occasional visit. So now the full-time professor is Ashley, I believe, Markovich, and she's great as well. They kind of co-teach it. So Carl takes the online lectures and then everything in person and all the designing is actually done with Ashley. It's a lot of fun. It's a great cross between starting a actual product and kind of a business off of that, and then the actual engineering side of it as well. So you get both sides of it. I'm in it now and I would fully recommend it to anybody who is into that type of thing. It doesn't require you to be a full-time engineer. It also doesn't require you to be full-time Wharton. So yeah, I definitely recommend it. And it also falls under the engineering entrepreneurship minor. How hard is it to get in? It's a lot easier recently because they have 3 sections. So I think there's actually like around 100, 150 people taking this class right now. And if you have like any type of reason to take it, like if it's in your minor or if you have it cross-listed with anything, then you'll get the priority for it. So yeah, I definitely think it's something that you can do. It's pretty easy and the quality is very high. Awesome, and now we're going on to general electives and I will keep talking. So yeah, EAS 5450, Entrepreneurship 1. Another great class. This is like the cornerstone / pillarstone of engineering entrepreneurship. It has awesome professors. The one negative is that it's a lot of essay writing. So every week you have an essay due and a quiz due. And because of that, it's not necessarily difficult, but it's a lot of work. And whereas product design, you're actually taking a product, you're manufacturing a product and you're selling it. Most of this class is you're studying those type of startups and those type of case studies. And you're writing about them and you're speaking about them in class. And it's a lot more into the actual business side of it too. So you're learning about the financial side. You have like entire models that you're going to be learning and presenting on different cases. So yeah, this is more of like the logistical side of having a startup, and you're learning from case studies on a weekly basis. Cool, and now we're going back to Miranda.
Okay. Sorry for the noisy environment, by the way. Fun parts of being a TA. Anyways, so this is Psych 0001 now. I love this whole 4-number course code. Introduction to Experimental Psychology. To be fair, I did take this during the COVID semester, so my experience, again, is going to be a little bit different than what you guys will experience. That being said, it's taught by Dr. Waller. She's very passionate about what she does, but do understand this is a big lecture course. It's a big lecture hall. So it's going to be very much so taking notes, paying attention in class, doing your weekly assignments. It's not super hard. Again, it's another memorization heavy class. So keep that in mind. But if you like psychology and you want something relatively simple that I guarantee you a decent amount of your friends are going to be taking because it's just one of those classes, this would definitely be one for you.
And now on engineering ethics. This is EAS 2030. This is a very straightforward class, also a requirement for every engineer. It is a lot of work and a lot of people don't really think that it's that useful, but it's simply something that you have to do. The professor is great. I also took this over the COVID semester, and when it was virtual, there were no midterms. You literally just had papers and projects due. But again, this wasn't very difficult. Again, it's teaching about the ethical side of engineering. It's just something you have to take, and it is a little difficult to get into. I tried to get into it my sophomore fall and couldn't, so I had to take it my sophomore spring. So definitely kind of factor that in. I would try and recommend getting it over with earlier rather than later, because again, it's not a class that you're going to want to go to.
I know it's also offered this summer if people want to take it this summer.
Great option. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually took that class over the summer and it was like very condensed, and I think she just like cut the amount of work down a little bit. So definitely like a good option.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. Okay, and on to micro and macro econ. These count as social sciences, which is a great way to fulfill your depth requirement. I took them both my freshman fall and freshman spring with the intention of transferring to M&T. That did not happen, but it was okay because they counted as my social sciences. They're pretty standard. I think most of you guys know what you would be learning in micro and macro econ. I personally liked both professors. I know people are pretty split on that. So you might want to look into that if you are taking this for an elective. But yeah, I would recommend if it's something that you're interested in, these classes honestly helped me most when I was recruiting for consulting. So if you have that business pathway in mind, it might be worth taking it. Cool. And
So design 10, I guess they've really changed the course code. For me at least, or I think it depends on your professors. So definitely check. But basically it's an intro to design course. It's super easy as long as you can get your work done during class. One of the downsides is that it's 3 hours long twice a week. So it is a time suck. I took it at night, I guess, first semester freshman year, and my professor let us out early a lot of the time. So I think definitely like, once again, check the professor ratings on Penn Course Review and make sure. But overall, I feel like it was a very helpful class in like miscellaneous, I guess, items, but also like I use them a lot more than I think I would have.
and writing seminars. So I'm assuming you guys have probably taken it, but for those of you that haven't, the absolute key with these are simply making sure that you find one that can be double counted as a social science, humanities, or TBS elective. For example, craft of prose falls under humanities. So definitely just like make sure you maximize that double counting. All writing seminars, even if they have entirely different themes or like different titles in their name, are pretty much the same. You're going to be learning the same thing. You were just studying a different type of book. So yeah, I would also say if you have a very specific writing seminar that you would like to take, you might want to rank it highly because certain ones are hard to get into. I remember that the specific writing seminar that I chose, I didn't get into, so I had to take a different one. So yeah, maybe send the professor an email or find a way to rank that higher on your list. And now we will go into minors, second majors, and dual degrees.
Yeah, so I can chat about a minor in MEAM. It's pretty straightforward. I know this probably isn't the right target audience for it, but I'll just give you the rundown in case. So you need 6 CUs and with no more than 2 100 level courses, which I think is a really good option for if you like are in MEAM your freshman year and then you decide you want to pursue something else. You've already taken like probably MEAM 110, or I don't know what the new course code is, and maybe 101 and like the lab. And so you're already like a portion of the way there. And so I definitely think that if you like change paths or if you're interested at all in MEAM but not for the full major, this is a really good option. Also, I was talking to one of the professors and they think like, I don't know if you know him, Bruce, but he thinks that with a minor in MEAM, you could always go back for a master's given like the foundational course that you've taken, like the 200 levels and 300 levels.
So as I kind of alluded to before, when I was a freshman, I was dead set on transferring into M&T. And when that didn't happen, I found engineering entrepreneurship. And I honestly can't speak highly enough about it. I think it's a great alternative for those of you that want to learn the business side of engineering and potentially could see yourself engaging in a startup. This minor is also 6 CUs. It also has some courses that double count, like EAS 203. So really, it's only 5 CUs because everybody has to take engineering ethics anyway. Again, those that double count include MEAM 415, which is product design, engineering ethics, and I think MEAM 514 is design for manufacturability. All 3 of those are great classes. And some other classes, engineering negotiations, another great class that is kind of like the negotiations that you all hear about at Wharton. It's taught by a great engineering professor. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this. And I see that there was a question in the chat, so let me pull that up. How do you declare the engineering entrepreneurship minor? So if you go to the engineering entrepreneurship like department website, you'll see that there's an application and it makes you like fill out a schedule for the 6 classes or 6 CUs that you intend to take. And then you have to email that to the department chair. and I believe also your specific advisor, and they both have to sign off. And then as soon as you do that, I think that department chair will then like submit it to Penn, and Penn will make sure that it's on your InTouch, or I guess now Path at Penn. And you should see it on there as soon as it's been approved. And there's a follow-up question. How late can you declare the minor? Theoretically, as late as you want, as long as you can get in those 6 Cs. So I declared it super early. Like I declared it, I think, sophomore fall, because I intended on taking classes for it sophomore spring. But yeah, I mean, you could probably declare it your junior fall and not have any issue. But I would definitely do it in your sophomore year, probably before you take ethics, because then you can count that on your course list. Cool.
Yeah,
Now we're
and then,
gonna, so go ahead, Jason.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was going to say, I know I spoke earlier about some of the math classes and kind of referenced this, but the math minor is really popular here. You have to take, I think, like 5-ish math classes for the MEAM major anyway. So once you've already done that, then the minor in math is like very little extra work for, you know, for that extra minor that you can show your expertise. They also have this rule where you can have one class actually be an approved cognate. So like something like physics 151, for example, could be approved as a cognate because it's like very heavily math based, even though it's not a math class, and then that would count as one of your 7. So that kind of makes it even easier to do. And yeah, so especially if you like math, then this is a very popular thing to do. And that's really all I got to say. The minor in cis is also very popular here. The cis minor is like not quite like the math minor in that it is somewhat harder to get. 2 classes specifically, cis 160 and 121, are kind of known as like weed out classes, so to speak. So you know, be careful taking those. Like if you think you might be interested in cis, or maybe even considering a cis major, then definitely, you know, put in the extra effort to take them. But if not, then, you know, maybe it's not worth struggling through those classes just for the minor. I kind of referenced a second ago, but if you are kind of between majors, like I was between MEAM and cis, then getting the minor in cis can kind of be a good backup. So if you were to decide on the MEAM major, then the cis minor is kind of there for you to show that you still have that knowledge that kind of sets you aside from some of your MEAM classmates. And also, if you're interested in robotics, maybe as a long-term thing or as a master's degree, then cis has a good amount of overlap with robotics as well. So that's another, you know, common combination there.
Yeah, and then I guess for the last minor that's kind of in the scope of MEAM is data science, since this is kind of the intersection of coding and math, and some classes that MEAM majors might be interested in, similar to the minor in cis is cis 120 or maybe 1200, engineering 105 or 1050 like we previously talked about, and then E&M 3210 probably is the new course title of that. Definitely recommended because it doesn't require a lot of classes that are outside of like current MEAM. So if you're not feeling math and not feeling cis minors, this is also another option you have. On the next slide is a dual degree between C's and Wharton. And so there's 2 options. You can do coordinated or you can do uncoordinated. If you're a freshman, this is, I'm talking to freshmen because the opportunities to transfer are at the end of your freshman year for coordinated and uncoordinated, and then halfway through your sophomore year for just uncoordinated. I will mention that there's a lot of required classes to even apply in addition to a minimum GPA. And so if you haven't taken those classes as of yet, that's okay. You can still like maybe take them over the summer and get to the required classes you need by the end of your sophomore fall. Definitely start looking at what the application requires early if you're interested. Because like for M&T, you need letters of recommendation. You also need like a full planned out course plan. And again, going back to the classes that are required for you to have taken. So definitely something to consider. I personally did this and would recommend. And then I did C's and Wharton. So yeah, I guess this is uncoordinated. We can just skip the slide. You can reference it for the class that you need to take. But for CAS programs, I did C's and Wharton, but you can also do a dual degree with the college. The coordinated option would be Viper, but it's also possible to do a second major, which is like a single degree from engineering, but you are able to have 2 majors, which is a nice option because you're not required to take all of the college like general requirements in the way that you are if you're actually getting a degree from the college. Again, I would be aware and have these on your radar if it's something that you're like even remotely considering, because there are a lot of, it's like quite a process to apply and be accepted. So definitely keep that on your radar if you're considering it.
So now we're going to go into our last section, which are MEAM upper level classes. And just actually before I jump into 520, MEAM upper levels, by the way, are those that are, I guess, 5,000 and above now. These are typically only for seniors. I think maybe you can take 1 or 2 your junior spring, but rarely will you get into them earlier than that. So yeah, starting with MEAM 520, energy engineering and power plants and transportation systems. This is a fall only class, and it builds on MEAM 333, which is now, I guess, like 3,330. And it goes more in depth on different engine cycles and energy cycles. So I actually had an internship last summer that built on this like directly. So this is very real world stuff. The difficulty, it's pretty mid, which is why it's exactly 2.5 out of 5, which is actually pretty good for an upper level. So I would look into that. And yeah, it's flexible to student learning. The lecture slides are actually really helpful for completing homework, which is not the norm. So it's a great class.
Yeah, so then I'll talk about mechatronics for a second. So this class is kind of notorious for being one of the like more difficult, higher workload classes here at Penn. One thing I'll say is that you definitely get out what you put in. So if you are willing to like put in a lot of the work and like rather than just do the bare minimum, like maybe put in even extra work to develop that understanding, then you're really going to become an expert in the core subject. So that's just something to keep in mind. In terms of what is the core subject, mechatronics is half mechanical, half electronics. So it's really that overlap, within the robotic systems, like electromechanical devices and systems. So a lot of the class is circuitry. A lot of it is kind of, designing mechanical parts and then really how the two fit together and some of the considerations that have to be put in accordingly. So that's kind of the content. Just some tips on here. Definitely go to office hours as much as you can. Put in really a lot of the time because you'll really get a lot out of it. If you're a Robo Master student or even just, not in Robo but interested in the material, then it's very popular to take it. There's a lot of jobs if you're looking for internships that are like mechatronics engineers. So this is really like core stuff in that respect. It's very hands-on. Like a lot of your time will be spent debugging code or debugging hardware. As opposed to just like written problem sets or something like that. So you're going to get a lot of really good hands-on like project building experience, which is good for your portfolio. So yeah, I would definitely advise you take this if you're interested. And then feedback control also is pretty popular among robotics students. Both of them, I forgot to mention this about mechatronics, but both of these classes actually meet a requirement for Robo. They're one of the 3 respective options for one of those Robo requirements. This is feedback control. So some of you might already know Bruce from the sophomore year lab classes. And if not, I'm sure you'll come to know him soon. And some of the topics are listed here, like learning about block diagrams, frequency response, things like that. If you don't know Bruce yet, one thing I'll say is that he's like very focused on learning and less focused on like traditional learning styles or like, grading traditionally or anything like that. So he'll give you a lot of work, but he'll be flexible about like when you do it or like in what form you'll do it. It's really more about like, are you getting out of the class like an actual sense of expertise in that subject matter that he cares about. So that's kind of just a different like classroom style, but something that you might come to like. Yeah, and that's another really good class that I recommend.
And we're back to Miranda.
Okay. Hi. Okay, so this is MEAM 5080 now. It used to be MEAM 508, and it has a very long title that is very important and that I refuse to memorize. Materials and Mechanical Design is taught by Professor Kevin Turner, Dr. KTT. It's an awesome course. I cannot recommend it highly enough. I took it my junior fall. You learn a lot about material selection. You learn a lot about the thought process that goes into figuring out why you want to do a plastic, why you want to do a metal, you incorporate elements of cost, of strength, of reliability, etc. So it's an awesome course. Cannot recommend it highly enough. Another good thing about taking it in your junior fall is that it reinforces a lot of the concepts you're learning in 354 or 3540. So if you're choosing the materials and design route for your concentration, this is a really good upper level to try and get into. Oh, and there's no difficulty on this, so I'll just like give my interpretation. It has a homework due every other week, and the homework assignments can be kind of intense. That being said, office hours are really great to go to, make friends in the class, you guys will get through it together, and you don't have a final, you have a final project. So even though you do have midterms, you don't have a final, or at least that's how it ran my semester.
Hi, I'll now talk about MEAM 5 or 5140, which is DFM, short for Design for Manufacturing. I haven't actually taken this class, but I have a lot of friends who have taken it, and it seems like the main takeaway from it is that it's kind of the opposite of Mechatronics in that it's not really a lot of work. You're not going to get a lot out of it, but it is fairly easy. So like, doesn't really make a huge difference, honestly, whether or not you take it. You do learn some good content about different manufacturing processes, which is like, really important on like some of the core classes like statics dynamics. Like this actually is really useful in industry, like knowing how these products you design are going to get made and how to kind of plan around that. So you really get a sense of expertise in that domain. The second half of the class is then more product oriented. So you actually design a product in teams, I believe, and then kind of take it through the whole life cycle. So like you do DFM, like you plan on how it's going to get manufactured and that kind of thing. And the first half of the class more along the lines of like problem sets to reinforce like some of the different manufacturing techniques you've learned about. And again, not a huge like time sink kind of class. You're not going to get a lot out of it, but I'd recommend it's like fairly easy and teaches you good content for application to industry.
Cool. And now we are moving on to finite element analysis, FEA, which is in the fall only, and it's taught by Professor Hu. This is a class that basically jumps off of solids, fluids, and heat transfer. So if you really enjoyed those classes, this is a great upper level for you to move into. It's very similar in difficulty to them. And you're going to be using COMSOL multiphysics, which is basically a aid in how you're actually simulating what you're learning. So yeah, it's pretty difficult. The quality is high though. I intend to take it. I've heard good things from the seniors that have taken it. And yeah, you can read the tips below. It says, do take the prerequisites, become friends with the TA, and go to office hours. Cool, and onto viscous fluid flow. This is particular to fluids. So if you really enjoyed MEAM 302, Professor Hu, or if you really loved Aratia, this is the class that you want to take. So I'd recommend looking into those professors, and if you've been friends with them in the past, definitely move on to this if you enjoyed fluids. It's a higher level of difficulty though, so be prepared for that, especially if you intend on taking it late into your junior year or late into your senior year. And the quality is again high. So if it's something you're interested in, definitely consider this upper elective.
All right, I can talk about MEAM 5450, which is aerodynamics. So this course is taught by Dr. Mahir Mistry. The class was formerly taught by Bruce, but is now being taught by Dr. Mistry, who is a former colleague of Bruce at Boeing. Dr. Mistry is now currently a practicing aerospace engineer at Edinburgh Industries, and the course is a solid introduction to aerodynamics, mainly focusing on airfoil theory, lifting line theories, subsonic aerodynamics, and supersonic wing theory. His course structure is definitely unique in comparison to most of the other professors because he is still a practicing engineer. So he teaches during his free time. His course structure is primarily focused on homeworks and projects, no exams. And a big tip for his class is to definitely read the textbooks that he provides and to be as engaged as possible because he reciprocates off of the class's energy. And so Dr. Mystery also teaches 5460, which is a class that I'm currently registered in, which is hover vehicle design, which is offered in the spring. I would highly recommend this class if you are interested in aerodynamics or fluid flow. This class differs in the sense that the topics being covered are a lot more introductory, but he focuses on helicopter aerodynamics, blade element theory, blade element momentum theory, blade articulation, and associated analysis models and techniques. His class structure is very similar to 5450 in the sense that he only assigns homeworks and projects. So your grade is very much heavily weighted on this as well as class participation, but he's very lenient on grading and is more in tune with what you get out of the class instead of more focused on whether or not you're getting the right answer.
Okay, and then IPD 501 is the last class I'll talk about. That class is kind of also notorious for like being a heavy workload class. Not quite as difficult conceptually. The workload is like pretty predictable. Much of it is machining, so kind of like MEAM 201 on steroids. Only thing is there's like 5 or 6 different projects rather than one big one. And the projects are very like design oriented. You get really meaningful design reviews with the teaching staff, which I should mention is actually primarily led by TAs as opposed to by a professor. The professor is really very active in this class, but the TAs will really help guide you through a lot of things and give you constructive criticism for your designs, which is a really good learning experience. You are gonna, like I said, focus a lot on machining. You also will learn a little bit about CNC machining. So that's like machining in 3 axes as opposed to manual. There's an injection molding project, which injection molding is really critical in industry. So, that's another good area that this will kind of expose you to that you can talk about in job interviews and stuff. And also carbon fiber layups. You pad your resume like really, really thoroughly with like, 5 really pretty looking projects you'll do in this class. So in that sense, it'll really help you for like interviews and stuff. And, really good SolidWorks experience. Really good experience working with the team as well. So very, very good class, but make sure you have the time if you're going to really try and take it.
Cool. And moving on to Turbulence. So this is MEAM 5380. This is another class that builds on fluids and thermo. So I'd recommend it if you really enjoyed those, or if you're pursuing a MEAM MSc or PhD, which I don't think anybody here live is doing, but potentially online. Again, this course is about turbulent flows. It's giving you quantitative and qualitative descriptions of fundamental processes in turbulent flows, and that runs off of like the Navier-Stokes equation, statistical descriptions of turbulence, equations for mean fluctuations, energy cascade, et cetera, et cetera. And then it explores more modern topics such as computational modeling, which you can see on the image in the right, and other versions of modeling for turbulence. So this class does require instructor permission for undergrads because it's also offered to MEAM MSCs or PhDs, but that's usually pretty easy to achieve. Just make sure you email the professor in time, and that is Professor George Park. Again, really high on the difficulty rating, but also really high on the quality rating. And the tips are just to be comfortable learning on your own and researching topics mentioned in lecture before they're actually brought up. But yeah. Cool, and on to transport phenomena. This is offered in the fall only, another class taught by Professor Ratia. So I'd recommend it again if you really like him because he's very involved. Again, this builds off of fluids and heat transfer. That seems to be a common theme amongst a lot of the upper levels because that's where a lot of the higher level engineers in mechanical engineering go. But this focuses more on mass, momentum, and energy transport. And it builds on a lot of the content that you learned at 302 and 536. It does prepare you for PhD level courses in fluids and heat transfer. So if you're intending on achieving that after your undergrad, I would definitely recommend taking it. And also if you're pursuing research in the summer or after college, then this is probably a class you want to take as well. It does have weekly homeworks and exams are brought forth when in person. And this is another one where you're probably going to have to learn a lot independently. And I believe this is the last slide. This is MEAM 5490. order of magnitude estimation. This is by Professor Igor or Professor B, who I really enjoy, and I'm actually signed up to take this class next semester. This isn't your typical MEAM class. This is more of like a statistical / math / very interesting class. Basically, instead of solving just engineering problems, you're going to be solving some fun math questions. So, for example, a lot of the problems are more interesting and fun. Here's one. What is the maximum size an asteroid can be without it getting spherical? So it's a lot of physics, a lot of estimation, and a lot of people actually say they use the thought process that you learn in this class in more industry-heavy settings, just because you're not going to be spending a bunch of time finding exact solutions like you do in college in the real world. So I definitely recommend taking this if you are interested in going into industry, or someone like me who is leaving the mechanical engineering field. This might be more applicable because it's not just so focused on engineering. And the difficulty is pretty low for the upper levels, and the quality is still really high. And yeah, they just say to utilize Piazza as your main method of approach for problem solving. And that actually wraps it up for our formal presentation. So I'm going to stop the recording, and I'm going to leave it open to any questions that anybody has. Feel free to stick around and ask, or to head out. But thank you everybody for coming.